economy we've ever had in the history of our country. And this is the time. This is the time to straighten out the worst trade deals ever made by any country on earth ever in history.
God, the hyperbole with that guy. Joining us now is Jared Bernstein, a senior fellow at the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. He was the former chief economist and economic policy advisor to Vice President Biden. And Jason Johnson is back with us. Hyperbole, everything is the best or the worst with the president.
I feel like Trump is imitating Alec Baldwin now.
It's wild. Jared, listen, economists are going to debate whether Donald Trump deserves any credit or whether this is going to sustain itself, these economic numbers, or whether it's actually as good as it looks, because what you're seeing in wages is not as good as what you're seeing with just these baseline economic numbers. Wages aren't rising. But right. when you talk to most people out there, if they're not economists, they're seeing that the Dow is up and everything is plugging along and employment is down, and they might say, hey, Donald Trump is doing a great job. I mean, look at this. In one of our recent polls, voters in blue wall states in Trump country, or blue wall states, rate Trump on the economy. 4 in 10 voters in all 3 states, this is Michigan, Wisconsin, and Minnesota, say the economy has improved and give Trump some credit. 1/3 don't give him any credit, and 1/4 say it's not improved. Jared, what's breaking through?
Well, I don't really think that the big GDP number that we got today is breaking through in the way that Trump and the White House would like it to, precisely because we just have this long-term structural inequality problem in America, and people understand that in the form of their paychecks. So they hear GDP's going up 4%, they hear the stock market's going up time, and they recognize that their paycheck in real terms has been pretty flat. Now, that doesn't mean that people aren't benefiting from a strong labor market. There are a lot of jobs out there, but there is more job quantity than there is job quality. And so given the range of the statistics that you just rattled off, you'd think that the folks' impression of the economy would be probably better than it is. So I don't think that it's not hurting the president by a long shot. It's probably not helping him as much as it would if it were reaching more people.
Jason, how are the Democrats seizing on an economic message to fight against Donald Trump's?
Well, the Democrats' message, of course, is about income inequality. They're going to talk about, the fight for 15 and those other issues. But Katie, what this really boils down to is understanding why Donald Trump got elected. I mean, he got elected in part because of racial animus. You just had a certain number of Trump voters who hated having a black president and they wanted to vote for him. You had some who voted for him because he was a Republican, some who voted for Donald Trump just because they wanted change. And if you look at it, even though the economy has been good, his approval ratings are still trash in lots of Midwestern states. And the reason is because Americans are now nominally used to a halfway decent economy, but they see the policies he's engaging in. They see what's happening with Russia. They see what's happening with kids being locked in cages in the border. They see what happens with banning transgender people from the military. All these different issues. That doesn't make people happy during a midterm. So if the economy got worse, it would definitely damage Trump and damage the Republicans. But a good economy alone is not enough to save them this fall and not enough to save his presidency.
Donald Trump's win is often attributed to economic anxiety, Jason. Is it really economic anxiety, or was that a word that was masking something else that's still there?
Yeah, that was a word that was masking something else. And I tell you this as somebody who was teaching in Ohio at the time. Donald Trump's support ran across all socioeconomic levels. All the data proved it. He got college-educated whites. He got working-class white people. This was about ethnic identity. This was about a certain swath of American voters who think that changing demographics in America are dangerous, and they wanted someone to fight back against the Obama era. The idea that economic anxiety, or that economics in general, is the greatest strength of this president's, it's never been true. It's never been true in his campaign, and it's not going to be true in the future. But what we will see, and if this is a non-sustainable economic growth that we're having right now, if the economy goes bad, we can imagine his numbers will go into the 20s.
Jared, one number that's not good for Donald Trump is the deficit, and Trump's tax cuts are causing $1 trillion deficit. The New York Times has a new article about it. What is the deficit going to mean for regular folks?
Probably not nearly as much as you might think. I mean, polling results for a long time now show that people put the deficit really very low on their list. What matters is kind of what's showing up in your paycheck and how you feel about the general economy. Inflation is certainly very, very real to people, and that's been ticking up lately, by the way. But in terms of the budget deficit, I think where that might show up is in the following way, and it links to something Jason was talking about. Somewhere out there, nobody knows where, is the next recession, the next downturn. And what you're going to hear from the Congress is that we put too much spending on the credit card, the debt to GDP ratio is getting close to 80%, and therefore we can't afford, in economic terms, we don't have the fiscal space in order to counteract the recession with the kind of fiscal policies that you need, the sort of stuff we did in the last recession, that was actually quite helpful. So I think at the end of the day, the deficit isn't going to resonate until perhaps in a downturn when Congress points to it and says, here's why we can't help you.
Jared Bernstein, you make it all clear. Thank you very much. Jason Johnson, thank you to you as well. Tonight's Last Word is next.